Alright, first thing we're going to be doing is just cleaning this thing off with some dish soap and a sponge and a cloth. Alright, so I just got the whole thing wiped down, turned it over, did all the sides and stuff. So now I'm just going to wait a couple minutes for it to dry. I'm going to get this tape off, then we'll start sanding. You obviously want to be really careful with this, especially after wiping down the wood, because it's going to be the wood's going to be extra soft, and you do not want to put any big indentations in with this. But that's also the beauty about wood is, you know, a lot of little scars and stuff, especially when you're refinishing, can just add character to it and give it kind of just a cooler vintage vibe, as long as it's nothing too big. But yeah, easy as that. So now we're gonna go ahead and start sanding. One more word, we're gonna be going over it with 80 first and then 120 afterwards. If you got something that's really in bad shape, like it's got a lot of deep gouges and stuff, you're gonna want to use like 60 or 40, and then move your way up to 80, and then 100 or 120. But this thing's really not that bad, so I'm just gonna scuff it up with 80, then 120, and then we'll stain it or put polyurethane it on it or whatever. So you can see how quickly this got clogged up because it's still a little bit damp. That's no big deal. What you can do with this is you can actually rinse it off with like pressurized sink water, or wait for it to dry and use like a soft wire brush or something like that in a vacuum to clean this off, and it'll still be good for a while. But I got so many of these and they're so cheap. I'm just gonna switch to a new one. Here's a little update. Went around, hit all the sides a little bit. So now I'm just gonna go back up top, clean that off, give it another go with the 120. Do the sides again with 120, and then I think we're gonna go ahead and stain it. And everything that you see that's not as sanded, like over here, is just gonna get painted white after the stain is done. All right, we've gone back over with it with 120. I just have to wipe it down, and then we're gonna take it out back to apply a outdoor stain / waterproof epoxy to it. That's just what I had laying around, so that's what I'm gonna use. But you can see any of these darker surfaces are just lightly sanded because these are going to be covered up with white paint. But I'm going to do everything with the waterproof sealer anyways, and then I'll go back, tape off the sanded wood, and sand this again lightly and cover it up with white paint. So this will be white. This will be white down here. Basically any kind of top surface besides up here is going to be white. And then the rest of it will be stained. All right, here's what we got after one layer of paint. It's been drying for about 16 hours.
I'm sorry, did I say paint? I meant the urethane, and this is what I'm using, by the way. So it's really just an outdoor sealer plus a little bit of coloring, but it's a nice color. It seals it off well. So we're gonna go ahead and do another layer today, and that'll be the last layer, but there's some things I wanted to mention before I do that. All right, so one of the things I wanted to mention is that in these corners here, you're gonna notice in the videos that there's circular marks from the rotary sander I was using. And I have one of these triangular sanders, but it's missing the adhesive Velcro that it needs. So what I did is I just used these triangle patches that I have, but you can also just cut a bigger circular disc off if that's all you have. And I just got in there in the corners like that. Did it perfectly fine. Having the sander seriously cuts down on the amount of time that it takes to do this. Like, I would not do this by hand. Just makes it more enjoyable to have the sander, and as long as you're careful with it, you're not going to damage anything. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the paintbrush that I used. Just a normal synthetic hair paintbrush, 2-inch wide. But it's always important to go with the grain of the wood. And also, whenever you see any little drips anywhere, it's important to brush those into the wood. Otherwise, it's going to permanently stain the wood with the drop in. But if you, brush it into the wood, then it's not going to be a problem. All right, one last thing before we put that final layer, that final coat on. Whenever you're done using this, first of all, I would use your sink drain to rinse this off. Then get a glass of water with soap in it, let it soak in there, and then change the glass. That's gonna get all the coating off of it, and it's gonna separate in the water. And then you can take this back out and let it dry, and then you can use this again on a different project. That way you don't ruin the brush. Alright guys, well this is the finished product. Still needs to dry some, but it turned out pretty well. I decided not to paint anything because it actually looks really good with the dark spots. I'm very happy with the way it turned out. So I think I'm just gonna leave it without painting anything white or anything like that. I'm just gonna leave it, let it dry, and maybe reevaluate once it's fully cured. But as of right now, I love the way it looks. So if there's any questions or comments or anything, you know, feel free to leave a like, comment, whatever, and I'll get back to it. These are incredibly easy and incredibly rewarding projects to do. If you're hesitant about doing it, after watching this video, I hope this was enough to convince you to go for it, because again, super satisfying with the end product. It's always a fun little project to do. I did this in probably about, whole thing start to finish was less than 24 hours to complete it, to get to this. So yeah, again, if you found this video helpful, interesting, whatever, you know, leave a like, subscribe. I'd appreciate it. Cheers, boys.